Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport and Bossier City, Louisiana, my hometown, your native son, C.L. Bryant. This is the C.L. Bryant Show, and we are streaming nationwide throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America. Still the superpower on the earth. And yeah, I'm glad about that. You should be too. I want to welcome aboard our friends in North Carolina as well as Southern Arkansas and East Texas. Glad that you have come along with us on this great American journey as we seek to expand our influence throughout the fruited plains of America. Well, there are any number of things that I could open with today coming up in the next segment. Expecting the High Sheriff of Caddo Parish, Steve Prater, to be on with us. I want to talk to him a little bit about law and order and the preparedness of our men and women on the streets of Caddo Parish and in this parish. Those of you who are listening around the country, that's what we call our counties here. They're parishes. The French, Catholic, Napoleonic influence on Louisiana. I want to know if the challenges can be met as far as firepower on the streets of our fair cities and here in the Arklatex by our law enforcement people. I also want to examine why Louisiana is the murder capital in 2016 per capita of the United States. So first, I want to examine next segment with Sheriff Steve Prater, the idea of law and order. I know what it means to him, but I want him to tell you. And he is that kind of candidate. He is that type of sheriff. Friend of the show, friend of mine. Now, Jay Watley, I got to tell you something, man. This has been on my mind ever since I saw this report come out. I was thinking about you. In a healthy teen has dropped dead, Jay.
Yeah.
From drinking these caffeine drinks. And how many times I told you watch that?
Yeah, I saw that. And the crazy thing to me is I was talking with some guys in the office earlier today. Did you read what those three drinks were? It was a Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
A coffee, right? A strong sugary coffee from McDonald's.
Yeah.
Right? And then an energy drink.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I talked to a few guys today, and they're like, "Look, we drink that every day."
Yeah.
I mean, that just goes to show you, you know.
I was listening to a doctor, Jay, and this is what he said. He said that should not have killed a healthy person.
Right.
But what they didn't know was what his heart was like. We don't know. And the doctor was saying, hey, that's why you go and you get a heart checkup every year at least to see if, in fact, caffeine is going to – some people it causes these palpitations.
Yeah. It's very scary.
It really is. It really is. Healthy kid. There was no reason in the world, folks, why he should be dead, but he is. And this brings me to this thought, and we're going to get into the Trump thing and the Russian thing and all of that a little bit later on. It has been 24/7 about the president. I'm going to tell you what the president did, why people are concerned about it, and why we should move on from it. Coming up after Steve Prater, I'm going to be talking about that after the 6 o'clock hour and the 7 o'clock, wherever you are. I'm going to be talking about that after Sheriff Steve Prater, because there is something that the president did. There is a reason why he did it, and there is also a reason why we should move on from it. Stay tuned. After the 6 o'clock hour, I'll be dealing with that. But this is something that's heavy on my mind right now because I'm talking about the death of this kid and why it should be something that concerns you. Because our youth, they don't seem to be as healthy as if you're in the demographic that listen to this show, that strong demographic of 35 and ups that listen to this show, that's really into this show. Your children evidently are not as healthy as we were. And this is the paradox for it. This is the twist in all of this. With all of the medical breakthroughs that we have experienced in this great nation of ours, and, breakthroughs in medicine just flourish in this country. Life expectancy is up in this country. Technology, accessibility to the world and knowledge and all of that type thing is up in this country. Yet, we have incredible obesity rate. Now, Michelle Obama, whatever you may think about her, I guess her heart was in the right place. The food tasting was just terrible, and the kids were throwing it in the trash. They weren't eating the Obama, Michelle's food plan in the schools. But she has a point as far as our kids are not fit. They're not. And there is a shocking statistic about those who go and register or want to become a part of the military. Our young people are not physically fit. So many of them, if they're over 18 and wanting to get into the military, they have opiate addictions. It makes us wonder that if we had to fight World War III today and we had to reinitiate the draft, we're talking about a lot of young people who wouldn't be able to fill. We might have an army of old dudes like me. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I wouldn't mind. And I don't know if I'd make it through the obstacle course, but I'm willing. And I'm pretty healthy. According to my doctor, I'm pretty healthy. But our young people are not. That should be a cause of concern. How many times do you see our kids with these energy drinks? I'm going to be back, good Lord will, with Sheriff Steve Prater. Don't go anywhere. CL, back with you on this Tuesday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport and Bossier City. Is I, your native son, Shreveport's own CL Bryant. Glad to be there. And I have another one of our own here on the radio with me. He is a favorite on the show. Hadn't had him on in a while. I know he's busy and we've missed each other on other occasions, but he is one of your favorites as well. He is the High Sheriff of Caddo Parish, none other than our friend of the show, Sheriff Steve Prater. Welcome back to CL Bryant Show. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastically well, Sheriff, and I want to let everybody know that this is National Law Enforcement Week, Police Week, if you will, throughout the nation. And I wanted to have a law and order candidate on with me to talk about just that, law and order. Sheriff Prater, my first question to you tonight is this. Let's start our conversation this way. Are we beginning to experience, after maybe a long drought of lack of respect for law and order, is that tide turning? Are you seeing any inclinations or anything that's showing us the way back to law and order as far as you can tell?
Well, I think that the pendulum is swinging back that way. A lot of damage has been done with the last administration or the last leaders in Washington, and not all of that is healed, and not all of that is changed. The media still hadn't changed their outlook, or the mainstream media, let me put it that way. And the fact that the police and law enforcement is guilty, and the criminals are the victims.
Yeah.
And until that changes,
all I can do is turn them
until
up
it
and turn them
changes
down.
drastically, it's still going to be hard to recruit. It's going to be hard to police. It's going to be hard to do anything. But the support that it brought out at the same time was tremendous.
Well, Sheriff, you're breaking up on me just a little bit, but we're hearing you. But it seems there's a little bit of static in there. But anyway, we will go on now. You were talking about recruiting. You're saying that there is now a more difficult level in recruiting officers and sheriffs to the department now, to the sheriff's department now. How's that shaking out?
Well, we're still getting some people that feel really called into law enforcement, but it's also difficult because a lot of people that might be borderline, might be really good at law enforcement, they're driven away, and they're saying, why can I go to work at a place where if I make a mistake, the tides that drive the ocean are going to say, I not only run the risk of losing my job that I have trained so hard for, but I run the risk of going to jail because of political reasons.
Tell them to call in our
And
hotline number.
that alone, the pay is not where it should be. The danger.
Yeah.
Tremendous danger in this job now, more than I've ever seen it. And I've been in it quite some time. When I was chief of police, I believe that just the span I was there, I had 5 officers that lost their lives in the last 2. So it was, it's more dangerous now. It's a different world to police in.
It's a different
in a wartime era, basically, with terrorism.
A different world to police in. Sheriff, I am going to have you call back in on this number, 320-5335, 320-5335. We've had callers are just calling in saying we're hearing him, but we're not hearing him. If you could do that, 320-5335. I want people to hear this interview with you. Can you do that for me? Okay, I think we got it. Great. Sheriff Prater is going to be back in with us here in just a minute. That connection that we had was just...
He's calling now.
Okay, 320-5335, 318-320-5335. That is the number that I need Sheriff Prater to call back in on so that we can get that interview right. Here he is now. We'll bring him in here just shortly. Folks, I hope you understand.
All right.
There you are, Sheriff. I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, good, good. Well,
Yeah, that's crystal. That's
tell
crystal
everybody,
clear.
I'm not in Las Vegas. I'm in Kettle Parish.
Well, have you been in Las Vegas, Sheriff?
I've been there once and wasn't real impressed.
You know, everybody says that comes from this part of the woods. But this is what I want to ask you as well. Now, you were saying to us that, of course, it's a dangerous job, and when you throw in everything, the animosity and all that type thing that is being formed or has been formed against policing and police officers in the past 8 years, it's hard to recruit. This is also something that is of concern to us, or should be concern to us as citizens. Are our policemen outgunned? Certainly they're outmanned, because there are probably more criminals out there than there are policemen. But are we outgunned if, in fact, we come up against stuff like the Chicago police are coming up against here in our neck of the woods? How would you speak to that?
I don't believe we are. In Kettle Parish, for instance, the deputies, if they're going to be on patrol, they not only have to qualify on a regular basis for the 40 caliber handgun, but they also have to carry a patrol rifle, 223, and they have to be qualified with that. And so they're secured in their vehicle. So that's the type of weapon that we see in the schools, for instance, when we have some fool that wants to go in there and shoot our kids. You know, that's the kind of weapon we come up against in there, so we are matched with them. So all this nonsense about militarization and all of that, we never paid that any attention, and I hope that has gone by the side.
I certainly hope so too, Sheriff. And so far, we haven't had the kind of foolishness en masse, anyway, that other parts of the country have. However, I'm seeing some statistics here coming out from the office of the Bureau of Statistics, and it is telling us that Louisiana, our state, last year, 2016, per capita, has become the murder capital of the United States again. Now, New Orleans does contribute a lot to those figures. How then do we fit in here in this neck of Louisiana in that overall Louisiana scheme?
Well, of course, naturally we're behind New Orleans, but we still have way too much violence in our area than is acceptable, than is the average. And Louisiana, that's why it just always amazes me. Everybody talks about how many people we have incarcerated here. And we need to, we can't be the capital any longer of incarceration. Well, if we're the capital of murder, then it just shows we're doing a good job locking up as many as we can, because if they're out there trying to hurt us, we're going to put them in jail.
Yeah.
Damn the numbers, it just doesn't make sense.
Stay right there, Sheriff Prater. Don't go anywhere. We're on with Caddo Parish Sheriff Steve Prater. We're going to be right back in just a moment. This is the C.L. Bryant Show. CL. After Sheriff Steve Prater, I want to answer the question that you all have been asking all day long. CL, what is it that the president did? We'll talk about it after we get off with Sheriff Steve Prater. But this is something that you should be very concerned about wherever you are, whoever your sheriff is. You need to be concerned about our people who deserve to be in jail going to jail. Here in Caddo Parish, where I'm from, they're going to jail. But also, Sheriff Prater, welcome back to the show. This is also the question that we have. How is it that we're locking so many people up, but yet you still have violent crimes that's going on? There doesn't seem to be a lesson being. Why isn't the lesson learned?
Well, we have a lot of people in jail, you're right, but we also have a lot of what I like to call turnstile justice.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives people, when they get in and they are deferred 2 or 3 times, when they get in and they plead guilty to a lesser crime, when they get that sort of thing, they have the idea, the concept that they have beat the system.
Mm.
And that's one of the common denominators of the people that were involved in police shootings across the United States last year was number one, they viewed themselves as the victims,
mm-hmm.
And the police as the criminals. And number two, they had this concept of turnstile justice, where they felt like they had beat the system, and that they would beat it again, or they're not held accountable for what they do. So I'm not a sociologist, although people expect us to be in law enforcement these days.
And psychologists and pastors and everything else.
Right. The list goes on and on. I just heard a few minutes ago somebody that wouldn't eat their breakfast or something, wouldn't eat this morning. They called him because the child wouldn't eat breakfast, and we were supposed to go and make the child eat. So that's the kind of nonsense that we end up dealing with a lot of times. But we're out there and we try to do what we can. But yeah, it's a fine line that we have to try to find between people that truly have a drug addiction and want some help, as compared to those that get arrested for a drug offense and don't want help; they just want out.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
When we look at Sheriff, when we look at the era of political correctness, and that's the era that we're still in. We're still in it. Is there a point where you saw the trend that we're now in? Did you see it coming? Is there a point, or did it all of a sudden just jump out the bushes and there it was? Did it ambush law enforcement, this politically correct type of attitude toward criminals and criminality? When did Steve Prater realize that you were dealing with a different time as far as law enforcement was concerned?
Well, it was when we failed to get backing from, or at least to stay out of it, from our national leaders, and they began to rant and rave and put out this misstatements about the police, about things they didn't know anything about. And all of a sudden, we began to have a shooting here and a shooting there, and many times the officer that was involved in the shooting was ruled to be having acted in a justified manner. Nobody, or many people, didn't want to believe it. They didn't want to believe the grand juries. They didn't want to believe the judges. They didn't want to believe the district attorneys. They had their mind made up. They're polarized. And then we had the same message coming from the Department of Justice at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that just backed it up. So we were able to fight our own, or we were able to maintain our own,
Yeah.
We were able to get by with it until the national leaders, elected officials, until they turned against us and said, hey, y'all are right. They are a bunch of hooligans that are trying to hurt people and pick out. And yes, Black Lives Matters is a valid organization, and they're saying the truth. And all that hurt us terribly.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff, what I always appreciate is your candidness coming on. Got to get you back in studio with me. I know that you're a busy man, and I certainly to tell you the truth, Sheriff, I hope things slow down for you. And the reason that I hope things slow down for you is that things get better on the street and crime begins to subside, because I really believe that you're doing a good job. Always have respected you as our sheriff. I'm glad that you are our sheriff. Last question for you, Sheriff. Now, as we move forward here in 2017, all of us are concerned. All of us are concerned about our safety here in our neck of the woods and where we live. What does Steve Prater see? Does he see optimism? Is there a reason to be pessimistic? How should we approach the future as far as law and order is concerned?
Well, the future is going to be bright. Like I say, the pendulum is swinging back. We've got to rid ourselves of this attitude of de-policing. Okay, and we've got to get back to proactive policing and doing it in the right fashion. We've got to get to the concept of community-oriented policing. And community-oriented policing is a great concept, and that's something every person on your department ought to have in his mindset. It's not a unit. It's not 6 people that you put in your community-oriented policing division. It's the entire mindset. But at the same time, people have to realize that, yes, we're for the community, and because we're for the community, we're not going to put up with a bunch of mess.
Right, right.
And so we got to get rid of this, go back to proactive policing, and when you're told to do something by the police, you do it. If you don't like it, you complain about it. You don't fight the police right there.
Right. Steve Prater, I know that folks appreciate, as well as I do, your open and honest candor as far as your answers are concerned. God bless and God keep you, Sheriff. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir.
I'm CL. This is the CL Bryant Show. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
All right. I got a headline in from Rockin' Rick, sent this in. CNN is reporting that former FBI Director Comey has dropped a bombshell saying that he was asked by the president to drop his investigation, to let it go, on General Mike Flynn. Just in. Now, the progressive liberals, CNN, all of them are salivating. Wolf Blitzer opens his dialogue with, "We are getting closer to impeachment of Donald Trump." Folks, these are troubling times that we're living in. The White House is countering with saying that this is an inaccurate description of that conversation. And we are looking at a pack of hyenas. Yeah. Wanting to take down prey. They have tasted blood on other occasions, and now this is coming up. Now, the question that I told you I would answer here at the top of the hour and coming up here after this block, I want to talk to Dr. Eric Wallace in Chicago, but I need to deal with this now. The question has been, what did the president do? Why were they all up in arms here this last 24 hours about the president leaking something to the Russians while he was meeting with Russian ambassador in the Oval Office? This is what allegedly happened. While talking in a meeting there in the Oval Office with he's the Russian foreign minister, who is officially a spy who lives here in America. While talking with the Russian foreign minister, allegedly the president named a city in Syria from which intelligence about operations in Syria came, and he inadvertently gave our adversary, the Russian, in his office there, the location of where our allies have spies. Now, our ally in this situation, even though they were not named, but it was pretty easy, according to those in the room, General McMaster was there, Tillerson was there, were our Israeli allies. Now, the president can, at any point in time, declassify whatever he wants by simply whispering it to you or saying, this is going to be now something we can talk about. What he did there is not a high crime or a misdemeanor at all. In this case, he did not break the law. He just wasn't smart about what he was saying. A rookie mistake, you can chalk it up to that. Now, the other problem is that in this situation where we have other allies out there, and Israel doesn't seem to have a problem with this at all. General McMaster, H.R. McMaster, who is our national security advisor, said that the president in no way was wholly within his rights to say what he said in that meeting because he was there, and what he said was absolutely appropriate. But the progressive liberal media, and I don't understand why the president doesn't understand this at this point in time, and he's just not, he's 70, he'll soon be 71 years old. He's not accustomed to having to guard his words in these type situations because he has not been a politician under the microscope of those who would want to hurt him and harm him politically. It's a rookie mistake. However, I have always said this, and I'm saying it now. And any of you Godfather movie fans out there who've watched The Godfather a million times like I have, you know that there's always a Tom Hagen somewhere around who advises the big guy on what he should say in this situation. The president is going to be well advised to listen to Tom Hagen and then speak, to listen to somebody and then speak through a filter. Otherwise, the progressive liberal media will hound him out of office. Now, him having a conversation with the director of the FBI, no problem. But again, that Tom Hagen guy, whoever the president chooses to be his filter, has to be there to tell him, do not, under any circumstances, allude to anything like let it go. Don't say it. Because your enemies, Mr. President, are not just in the Democrat Party. You have enemies in your party, and the entire media, except for maybe a handful, and you can count them on one hand, the entire media in America, the entire news media is gunning for you. You have to be careful what you say. Your actions will speak very loud, but your words, Mr. President, you're not the most articulate person in the room. You need a filter, and for God's sake, stop tweeting. Republicans, let me tell you something. We have been so good, and this is just another example of it, at snatching defeat out of the arms of victory. We somehow turn that babe in the arms of victory into the demon of defeat. One thing we did know from the very beginning, the president was a loose cannon. But we have to, for his sake, rein him in. I'm CL. We'll be right back. Now, this memo, written allegedly by FBI Chief James Comey, following a February meeting with President Trump, says that Trump asked him to shut down the investigation into Mike Flynn. True, false, or indifferent, there is no question that at this point in time, this president is going to have to remain above any type of reproach. Because, listen, let me tell you something. And he does it to himself. The tweeting, again, for the love of peace, Mr. President, please, stop tweeting. Don't do it anymore. It's just don't do it. Leave that to me and other people to tweet for you. On your behalf. But understand that if you say the word ain't, and Mr. President, if you say y'all, as common as that is here, especially in the South, you're going to be called to the carpet for it. You've got to continue to beat them at their own game by not giving them the ammunition or the stick to hit you with. It's a whole different ball game. Now, 320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call if you want to talk to me. We will be coming up with Dr. Eric Wallace here in just a little bit. There is an event that he is going to have in Washington, D.C. He's invited my wife, Jane, and I to come up to, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, talk to him a little bit about this. But this is something, folks, that is going to cause the news cycle, especially that of the progressive liberal news cycle, CNN, MSNBC, the Washington Post, all of them are foaming at the mouth. They're foaming at the mouth, salivating over this. Mr. President, understand, too, a new broom sweeps clean. It's still not too late for you to sweep that entire Obama administration, the holdovers from the Obama administration. It's not too late to sweep them out. Sweep them out because you have a security leaker. You have a rat on board your ship. You have a rat in your closet, and you got to get them out. I'll take Joe. Joe, thank you for calling. Thank you for listening. What's on your mind, friend?
Hey, CL.
Hey.
I don't see how we're going to win if we keep talking about all these rot gut talking points these radical media type liberals throw out there, and then we talk about them for all week long.
Yeah.
We never talk about the unemployment down, or companies bringing jobs back,
right,
or other countries, the good things Trump. We never talk about that. We talk about, like tonight, we're talking about all this rot gut crap these guys have thrown out there, and we're still talking about it.
This is the problem, Joe. The president keeps talking about it. That's the problem. If he would get back to doing what he was doing when he did, in fact, open up the XL pipeline, the Dakota pipeline.
We have to help him, though.
When we did all of that,
we have to help him. We're not a politician.
We're doing our best. We really are, Joe. We're trying to do our best to do it. But my advice to him is to get him. You've seen The Godfather, right? You've seen Godfather 2. He needs a filter. He can't handle this job like he handled that job in the business world, and it's up to him to surround himself with people who knows this world that he's in, or those people in the progressive liberal news media. They will keep a constant distraction going on. My advice to him is to get away from it. Leave it alone. You're right. You're absolutely right. Hey,
we can help him by not talking about it all night long.
Okay, well, Joe, this is what people are going to be hearing, not from us. I promise you, tomorrow morning he's going to tweet out about this. I promise you, he's going to tweet out about this, Joe. What do you bet? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not putting no bets on
No,
that.
and you're a wise man not to do it. That's what I'm getting at. He keeps talking about it. He keeps this news cycle stirred up. He should never have said
But
to.
you know what? You know what, CL?
Mhm.
I love it because he's fighting. He's fighting these people. Instead of these pee-in-their-pants Republicans who always cave in, Trump is standing up and he's fighting back, and that's why I love him.
I like him too. I really like him a whole lot as far as his courage is concerned, Joe. But alas, eventually he's got to realize that on these issues he's only one man. He's got to let his Tom Hagans fight this for him, and he goes about being the president of the United States. About those jobs you're talking about the XL pipeline that we're talking about the victory that we're having on Wall Street, about the jobs being up in the corporations coming back to America. He needs to stay the course on that, and for Christ's sake, stop tweeting. Stop it. And but anyway, Joe, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling.
All right.
Joe is absolutely right. Joe is absolutely right. I understand his animosity. But opinion makers like myself, opinion piece people like myself, when the president is off the rails and being preoccupied with who said this about him, he's the one who's changing the narrative. He's the one who's keeping this going. Get back to talking about what got you elected. I see that you're draining the swamp. Didn't I warn you? Folks, I told you when you drain the swamp, being a Louisiana boy, we know a little bit about what's in that swamp. There are things there that really want to hurt you, and they do not want their habitat disturbed. This is snake season. I was down in Grand Cane just the other day. I saw a snake look like a boa constrictor. It was huge. Black snake, chicken snake, but it was big. Let them live, because they kill other snakes and they get rid of little varmints for you too. But there's varmints in that swamp, and when you are trying to disturb their habitat, when you are disturbing their habitat, they're going to get you. And the only thing you can do is have yourself a snake hunter there, so you can go ahead and walk out in the woods yourself on a clear path, the same path that got you into this woods that you're in. And that was creating jobs. That was breaking the regulations so that companies will, in fact, come back to America and do business. That's opening up energy sources like the XL pipeline and telling the good news about who you are and what you're doing. But all this sidetrack stuff, Mr. President, get away from it and get rid of somebody is in your camp that they don't like you. You need to hunt them down, put some cheese in the trap so that you can find out who they are and trap them in the trap and throw them away. Back with Dr. Eric Wallace when I return. CL, back with you on this Tuesday. Here throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. And that is America. We are broadcasting from our flagship station right here in the jeweled cities of the Architect Shreveport and Bossier. It is I, your native son, CL, and of course you folks in southern Arkansas, East Texas, and over there in North Carolina. Want to thank you for coming along with us on this great American journey. On the line with me is a great American. His name is Dr. Eric Wallace, the husband of Jennifer, and he is the founder of Freedom's Journal, pro-lifer, conservative to the core, and full disclosure, he happens to be a black American. Eric, thank you so much for being there with me. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, brother. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Really glad always to be on with you. We were speaking a little bit earlier today, and it sounds as though you have an event coming up in June, around the middle of June, that will focus on relationships, marriages, that type thing. Tell us about it, and when is it going to be? Where is it going to be?
Well, it's called the long title is the BCS 2017 Leadership Initiative, within BCS stands for Black Conservative Summit.
Mm-hmm.
The theme is Black Families Matter, the state of the black family, 52 years after the Moynihan Report and 80 years after the New Deal. It obviously, because of the title, we're looking at the state of black family. And the short title is basically Black Families Matter. Now, it's going to be in Washington, D.C., June 15th through the 17th. And it culminates, the June 17th is actually the March for Marriage. So we purposely, picked that particular weekend, and obviously it's the weekend of Father's Day as well.
Right.
Which is symbolic for us as well.
Right.
Knowing that we need more black fathers to be involved with their children. So yeah.
Is that the key to turning this thing around, Eric? Because 80 years after the New Deal, you cited FDR's New Deal there. There is obviously a slide. The slide began. Was there a visible slide that began in the black family in America in that New Deal era, or did it happen later? When did this begin?
I would say it, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about at the conference. When did it start to change? Because we know that in the 40s, it was like 75% of children were in two-family households, a mother and a father, and that began to change. The question is, when did that start to happen? And the Moynihan Report was written in 1965 because he saw the decline of the black family, and for him it was only what he saw was 25% of black youth were in
a two-parent home.
No, and we're not in two-parent homes.
Right.
In
1965, only 25% of black youths.
Right, yeah, the illegitimacy rate was like 25 to 30%. Now it's like it's over 70%.
Right. In my film, The Runaway Slave, Dr. Thomas Sowell says these words that were shocking to me 4 years ago. They're shocking to me now. Dr. Thomas Sowell said that under slavery itself, there were more babies born to two-parent families than there are in America today. And that was in 2014, 2013, when I interviewed Dr. Sowell, and he said that. That was shocking. And so there is a trend, and what is the end goal? What is your goal as far as having this event?
Well, one of the things we want to talk about is how do we turn this around? I mean, people can talk about, the problems that everybody talks about Chicago. Chicago is one of the worst places to be. Got the highest murder rate, especially among African Americans. It's not white police officers we have to worry about. It's other black youth shooting other black youth. It's gang violence, and we need to figure out why is it that young black men and even young black women are getting involved in gang-related activity and shooting one another. And we've always said that, or at least for years we've been saying, is because of the breakdown of the black family.
Yeah.
And we need to do something about that, and especially as Christian folk,
Yeah.
those of us who are pastors who know the Lord, especially those who have churches,
Yeah.
we need to be doing something besides public policy. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some public policy things that we can do, to help with that, but pretty much speaking, it's the church's job to help deal with that issue.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Wallace, and you and I are an honest pair. We've always been able to talk very openly and honestly about things that many times others would shy away from, but this is a topic that we must meet head on. And both of us, the Lord has expanded my pulpit now in ways outside of the mainstream as far as the mainstream church is concerned. And I look pretty much as the various platforms that he allows me to stand on in America as my pulpit. When we return after this break, Eric, I want to ask you this question. I want to talk about this in detail. I want to talk about it honestly. The black church, the church, period, white or black, has known their responsibility historically. The question has to be, and yes, you say absolutely right, that it is necessary to look to the pastors and the churches. But I have a feeling that the people have been looking there for the last 40 or 50 years, and the slide has continued. The question that we are going to have to deal with is, why has that been the case? I'm CL. I'm on with the founder of Freedom's Journal, Dr. Eric Wallace, when I return. CL. Back with you on this Tuesday, streaming nationwide throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. But we do have our problems to overcome in all facets of American life. On with Dr. Eric Wallace, the founder of Freedom's Journal Institute, always a shaker and mover, always concerned about his community, fellow man. Very proud to call him friend. Dr. Wallace, we were dealing with this issue as to why the church, with the church having the knowledge, the black pastor, the church, black or white pastor, because white America, let's face it, is falling into the same state of disrepair. And the church is still there. So the question has to be, if the church is doing what, is it about numbers? Is it about the community? Jesus still saves, as far as I know that to be true. So what is going on here in your estimation?
Oh, wow. I don't know how much time you've got, but that's one of my pet peeves is trying to because our ministry is actually to the church and trying to get the church to stand up and be the church it's supposed to be, and black and white. There really isn't black church and white church. It's just a church, but because we segregate into our various church buildings and denominations, it seems as though a lot of times a lot of people in the pulpit, the pastors, don't fully understand the Word of God itself. I mean, we're too busy preaching other stuff. We want to preach, your best life now.
Yeah.
That's somebody else.
Yeah. I'm okay. You're okay.
Yeah. Right. or we can have, we're busy preaching prosperity. Now, I'm not saying that the people of God shouldn't be prosperous.
I understand.
It doesn't mean that we're going to have a good day all the time. It doesn't mean that we're always going to have money flowing in. There's times it's going to be hardship. In fact, Jesus tells us that. If they hated him, if the world hated him, they're going to hate us too.
The road does get rocky along the way for everybody. It rains on the just, Dr. Wallace, you know this, and the unjust. But this is something that I want to ask you. You're a pastor, you know the situation, and all of you pastors out there, red, yellow, black, and white, could it be, and this is something that I talk about on the trail out there, part of my pulpit, Eric, could it be that we have made this God of the universe, we have recreated him in our image, and now we're reaping the consequences of that, and that's something that I talk about before all types of crowds, and mixed crowds, singular colored crowds. But in black churches, Eric, I see black Jesus. In white churches, I see white Jesus. I'm sure the Korean church have their version of Jesus, but we have recreated him in our image, which has nothing to do with what we're supposed to be about. What do you say?
I agree with you, brother. I mean, that's what we do, and we've allowed secular thinking to infiltrate into the pulpit, and people don't understand really who is the God of creation, who's the one who spoke the world into being, and the one who made male and female in His own image. I mean, we've lost. We don't even understand the value of human life, because we put aside Genesis and said, the first 11 chapters are a bunch of fables, and it's really evolution. We're really created by chance, by matter, energy, and chance.
Right.
And we really don't understand who this God is that we serve. And
You
what He
know,
requires of us.
when I think about the miracle even of you and I speaking to each other, I imagine that you're in Chicago now, and here I am in Louisiana. The miracle of this type of communication, the mind that was placed in the people who made this possible, as far as Marconi and people like that, to transmit, that was a intelligent design. Nobody with any common sense can say that this, you and I talking over this contraption that we're talking about, and I'm in a very nice studio and all this type of thing, it was just by accident. There's just no way. Eric, I was talking to an educator, and you have a doctorate, and you will appreciate this. I want to ask you about this. She was saying to me yesterday, Marlene McMillan is her name, Dr. Marlene McMillan. You should meet. I want you to meet her. She was saying that even in homeschooling situations now, the progressive liberalism is infiltrating the homeschool material, and the parents are not aware of it because most parents are in their 25s to 35s who are homeschooling, and all they know is progressive liberalism. So when it's sneaking into their home, even in homeschooling situations, they don't realize it. Eric, that's what we're dealing with. That's as diabolical as it can get. We're dealing with that generation of people.
It's sneaking into our own Christian colleges, man.
Yeah.
I've been doing some reading about I preached a sermon not too long ago at this church on what I call the gospel of God. This is God's story. I started from Genesis 1 and walking through Genesis 1, 2, and 3. And I was telling them, I said, look, we have to decide that this stuff is true or it's a total fabrication. And we go to the evolutionist side. But we understand that what God said, either God is the God who created this world, and thus he has a right to tell us how to live, or he didn't. And you can't take evolution, this whole thing about theistic evolution, it just doesn't work. Because evolution was created in the minds of human beings to get rid of God.
Now, you're a Neanderthal. You know that they're called, people there who are listening around the country right now are calling both of us Neanderthals.
That's all right. I'll be a Neanderthal for Jesus.
For saying that. We're knuckle draggers. We're so backwards. Do you know what Michelle and Barack Obama would say about what you've just said? That you're a science denier.
Yeah.
You're denying science, Reverend.
I think that science actually corroborates with what we're saying.
I agree. I totally agree. But this is what I was trying to point out, playing the devil's advocate there. I was trying to point out that our children, when they're faced with that type of pressure, when they're faced with the thought that they could be outcast for saying something contrary to what's popular, they're beginning to bend and break and run away. That's what you're going to have to deal with in conferences. That you and I will talk about this in great detail, because there is a lot of work to do, Pastor. A lot of work to do. And I think you're up to doing it. I certainly believe that you're up to do it. Tell us more about your website. Tell us how people can get a hold of you.
One of the easiest ways to get information about the conference is to go to blackfamiliesmatter.org. And, of course, we're using that because, people have made that, the thing to say, black families, that, Black Lives Matter or whatever. We're not saying that only Black Lives Matter. What we're trying to say is that as we look at what's happening in our community, especially the black community, we understand that families matter. And especially in this situation, black families matter. If families were together, we could do something to help keep strong families together. We wouldn't have some of the juvenile delinquency that's going on in our community. So go to blackfamiliesmatter.org. Blackfamiliesmatter.org will take you directly to the page, show you who's coming, Tim Kinchlow, Dr. Alveda King, Star Parker, trying to get you there, my brother, and a host of others.
I am going to do my absolute best to make it up there the 15th of June to be with all of you. Every name you name, Star and Alveda, are dear friends of mine. You along
Ryan
with them.
Baumberger, right?
Yes.
Ryan will be there.
Yes.
We even have Dr. John Trent, who's a PhD in psychology from Moody Bible Institute.
Well, I tell you what, this is the time when we need a good psychologist. but even psychologists still need Jesus Christ. Thank you so much, Eric, for being there on with me today. Going to have you back before the event. God bless and keep you, man.
Thank you, brother.
I'm CL. That was Dr. Eric Wallace who was on with me there. I'll be back. We got to talk some more about the hoopla, the disturbance, the great disturbance that's going on in America right now. Look over there. That's exactly what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. You have a bunch of politicians who's saying to America, look over there. Look over there. The Russians are coming. In the meantime, what's happening to you and me is that they are softening their position on immigration. Are you hearing me? We're not being vigilant. We're not being vigilant like Thomas Jefferson told us to be, because that's the price of our freedom is eternal vigilance. You got to watch what's going on at all time while they're steadily telling you about the Russians are coming. Trump is talking to Comey, and Comey is a willing participant in diverting our attention for what's going on. They are softening their position on immigration while we're listening to the Russians are coming and Wolf Blitzer and whoever else is on CNN and even pundits on Fox. I think they're all in cahoots in distracting us from what's going on. Has anybody heard anything about Obamacare lately? Huh? Look over there. The Russians are coming. The Russians. But Obamacare, hadn't heard a thing about it now in several days. Because the Russians are coming. Illegal immigration. Even though we know that it's in appeals court right now, don't hear much about that because the Russians are coming. Don't hear anything about the two of them because the president is tweeting out about, defending himself against things presidents shouldn't defend themselves against. You have people to do that for you. Yes, Joe, I'm trying to help him, but he is a part of the problem. And if I can help him, we all, those of us who elected him, I'm talking about you out there, Mr. and Mrs. Grassroots America, those who had enough of this same old, and said we need to send a wrecking ball to Washington, D.C., well, guess what? The muck and the mire that goes on in Washington, D.C. has the feet that we thought would run swiftly across that pond is being mired down by the constant barrage. No, not by me. No, I'm not miring him down, but the news is the news. And the news is that the president is opening himself up to these things unnecessarily. Stop it! The one pass that he has is this. He's never been a politician. And folks, this is the name of the game. You can play baseball on a football field, but you look ridiculous because in the minds of the people, you're out of place. You have to change the rules altogether. And you can't learn the game of football by reading a book. You have to actually make full contact. You have to pad up, and you have to get into full contact. And politics, regardless of what you want to call it, that is actually the name of an activity. We, the body politic, hire people to go to Washington to take care of our business in a political arena. And if you're going to play in that arena, you must understand the first rule of politics, and you may try and change it, but it has never changed over the time since Cain killed Abel. It's a blood sport. That's hard, but it's true. Church politics, business politics, However the body politics plays out, it's played for keeps because you're talking about power. And as idealistic as you might want to be about the word itself, it is actually an activity. It's actually something that can be studied and understood. And if you're going to play in the biggest political arena in the world, Washington, D.C., you need to understand how that game is played regardless of your noble intent. Like me or dislike me for saying it. But friends, I love America and my fellow citizens enough, red, yellow, black, and white, Christians, Jews, and whoever you may be, to tell you the truth.
What?
That is the reality of what this president is facing. Strong, yes, he is. Courageous, yes, he is. Brash, definitely so. Can he do the job? I believe he can. But he's going to have to learn the rules of this game. Can he change the rules of the game? He can play by the rules of the game with his own playbook. Yeah. He change the rules? No. Play in the game with your own playbook? Absolutely. I'll be back.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
How does a candidate of any time, a preacher of any kind, a parent of any kind, reach out to young people? It's simple. Ask young people questions. I do it all. This is what I do for a living. I leave here many times and I go out and I talk to young people around the nation. Of course, their parents are there too. And even in any engagement, I'm asking questions. The reason I bring that up is this. How does this administration find its way out of this swamp? They have the drain plug in their hand. How do they actually drain it, though? Young people will actually help them if they would ask questions like this. Why are you killing yourselves? Imagine a presidential administration that is actually so engaged with its future citizens that it takes the time to ask its future citizens, why are you killing yourselves? Teen suicide is very, very high in this country. Yeah. There is a show on Netflix. I have never seen it. I've heard talk of it. My son has told me about it. It's called 13 Reasons Why. 13 Reasons Why. I think it spawns or stems from a book that was written, in fact, in Mesa Valley County schools. They were thinking about taking this book out of its libraries because they feel it is the reason why 7 of their students over time have killed themselves. They cut themselves. There's a fixation on hurting themselves. What would it look like if you had a presidential candidate who, instead of all of the Russians are coming fiasco, would have a summit dealing with that? I think that would turn young people toward whoever did it. And I've just given an idea to both camps. I'm going to be using it. And I'm telling you, there's no shortage of customers because the millennials are coming along behind us, and I really don't know what truly is coming behind them. But I do know that they are suicidal. I know that they are unhealthy. And I know that they have been warped by the principles and ideas of progressive liberalism. What would it look like if you had a president who would deal with that issue? Because if we don't deal with that issue, there's no sense in dealing with all of the rest of these issues because they're the future. We may save ourselves from the Russians, the Iranians, but this too will pass away, and then your work, your labor is in vain because the people that you leave it to, they give it away anyhow. Isn't that how it happens most of the time? Oh, my goodness. Isn't that how it happens most of the time? You work, you slave, you sweat to get something to leave behind, and what happens? It gets given away anyhow. Hey, not in one of those moods where but America, we've done better in worse times. The stock market is good. The opportunities in America are fantastic. We are still the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We are, in fact, reasserting ourselves throughout this globe. We're doing all of that. But we slave and we work, and the people that we're trying to give it to, they're killing themselves with energy drinks and on the inner city streets of America. And they're killing themselves by their own hands. They're cutting themselves. So, okay, so the Russians are coming. We thwart them. We stave them off. Okay, little Kim has an ICBM that he can put a nuclear warhead on and launch it toward us. Okay, we take him down. We stave him off. We keep the Iranian prophet in the well. He never comes out. We stave that off. But yet we cannot mount an army of our own if World War III breaks out, because we have a population addicted to opiates and young people who can't do 10 chin-ups. We need to break on through. I'll be right back. CL back with you. You know what? We may be concerned about the wrong thing. I was telling Jay during the break that I see just driving down the street, and you do this. And hey, listen, if you have one of these that I'm about to describe in your house, or you know one, if they're your child or your grandchild, you need to do something about it. Let me tell you what. My dad, at my age, I'm 61 years old. No, the average person would not ever say that I was that old. But I'm telling you, full disclosure, 61 years old. Don't feel my age. Some people say, well, it's true. I don't look my age. Okay, but anyway. But I know I drive down the street and I see 15, 16, 17, you name them, whatever age you want to put on them, 12-year-olds walking down the street. And I know that I can outrun. If they were trying to run away from me, I would catch them. If we were in a chin-up competition, I could do more chin-ups, more push-ups, more sit-ups. I know I could. And if you got a kid in your house who is if you're 45 to wherever, to 70, 80 years old, if you got a kid or a grandkid that comes to your house and you know that if they tried to run from you, you could run them down. We may be concerned about the wrong thing. Which one of us, who among us, if you get a call today saying that your child is in trouble, you wouldn't be thinking about Russians. You wouldn't be thinking about anything but saving that kid from whatever it is. I'm telling you that the call is coming. The call is on the line now. And we are being distracted from what truly matters. And yes, illegal immigration does matter because the country will be stolen if, in fact, we don't. But the country will be given away if we don't pay attention to these young people who are coming up behind us, who are not physically fit. They are opiate. They're addicted to video games, and they can't do 10 chin-ups. The Army won't take them. 35% of those who are applying to go into the military are being rejected. We can boast about our firepower, but it was not their generation who actually created the firepower. Matter of fact, if we don't instill some good old American common sense into those who are coming up behind us, they will dismantle all of the weapons that protect them from evil and tyrannical men like Kim Jong-un and whoever the nut is in Iran from the Vladimir Putins. And yes, even though the Chinese have a beautiful smile on their face to us right now, they're our adversary. They want to be number one. And don't you ever forget that the names I've just named, especially that little Korean guy, his daddy called him the little crazy fat kid. That's what his father called him. No, I'm not fat bashing. Stop it. I'm not doing it. I'm just telling you what his dad called him. His daddy called him the crazy little fat kid. That's what his father, Kim Jong-il, his dad, called Kim Jong-un, the crazy little fat kid. Well, he's been laying in the bushes. And yesterday I was talking to Lieutenant Colonel Alan West on the show. And this whole time for 16, 20 years, that Oriental mindset, that Occidental mindset, has been long gaming this, has been looking at the long game, the big picture. The Chinese are beginning to arrive at their big picture. The Russians want to recapture the glory days of the Soviet Union. That's who Vladimir Putin is. President Obama gave the Iranians money, big stick to hit us with. And, of course, we are dealing with an uncertain Senate, uncertain House of Representatives. These are murky waters that we are traveling in. And except by the grace of God, they may get murkier. But through it all, we've survived worse. The Great Depression was bad. Times were hard in 29. That's what Grandpa told me. Daddy was a little boy then. Times were hard in 29. Here in America, everybody's eating because a lot of people are on food stamps. That's going to play out too. You better believe it. We're headed for 2020, and it is hard to decipher at this point just how we going to get there. But we will, good Lord willing. I'll be back. Close it out. Just a minute.
If you had not have fallen, then I would not have found you. Angel flying too close.
Right now, there are some of you who can't go back this far with me, but I'm going to go back with those of you who can. There was this cartoon series that had this moniker on it. It was called the Modern Stone-Aged Family. You know who they are. They were the Flintstones. Yeah, they're a place right out of history. Modern Stone-Aged Family. If you'd have told me then that we'd be facing 2020, that I'd even live to have seen it. I still haven't, but good Lord willing, we will together. I would certainly have believed that we as a nation would be so much more sophisticated. No, not technologically. Because unfortunately, even though we are technologically advanced, we are in the Stone Age when it comes to common sense. Isn't that amazing? How is that possible even? To have the wealth of knowledge in the palm of your hand. My goodness, you can read the whole Bible on your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device, anywhere in the world. You can have whatever information, recipe, fix your car, Google it. Who is Google, you would have said 50 years ago. Then you look forward into the future. 2017 it is. Far from the Stone Age. In fact, cartoons like the Flintstones are so antiquated at this point in time, it looks as though some kid had put them together, if you see them now. Folks, we're living and looking at modern stone-aged families on a daily basis. And the illiteracy rate among those who should not be is actually climbing in 2017. Ha. And the Russians are coming. Don't forget that. Our kids are killing themselves. And these energy drinks, consumed mostly by young people, and hey, I thought they were the ones who had all the energy to begin with. It's killing them. Pay attention. The price of your liberty is eternal vigilance. Christian, non-Christian, whoever you are. American, pay attention. The price of your liberty is eternal vigilance. Well, I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our minds. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL, and may God bless and keep you all.